Hey friends, you are crafting with Kim Byers, and today we're going to do a little test. So today we are going to try to put DTV, direct to vinyl, or printable heat transfer vinyl, onto a mug using the Cricut Mug Press. So we are going to give this a whirl. I'm really interested. So if you saw my video last week, I went A to Z through DTV. So what it was, how you use it, all the things. So today we're going to take DTV and we're going to print out some really cute patterned designs. By the way, with DTV, all the patterns, all the colors, anything you can dream up, you can print with an inkjet printer onto this printable vinyl, and then you can apply it with heat. And so last week we put it onto Halloween tote bags. So cute. Great on t-shirts, all the soft things, pillowcases and all those kind of things. So we're gonna test it out today on ceramic and put it in the mug press. So let's hop over to the craft table. I'll show you what we're working with. We'll pop into Cricut Design Space. I'll show you the designs, which by the way, I have a free cut for you this week. So if you are an email subscriber, you'll be getting that in your email. If you are not yet subscribed to my email list, hop down in the description and sign up, and I will send you this darling cut. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to craft with me each week. Let's go. Okay, so here we are on the craft table, and these are the things that we're going to use for today's experiment. So I have my Cricut Mug Press, I have my Cricut machine, I have a mug, I have DTV, direct to vinyl. So this is the printable vinyl that we talked about in the last video. And then I have a green mat, I have a tape measure, and I have some alcohol that I'm going to use to clean my mug. One thing I do want to point out is this mug does not have to be anything special. It does not have to be a sublimation mug. It can be something you got from the Dollar Tree, Hobby Lobby, Target, wherever you want to get your mugs from. It does not have to be a special mug. Okay, so let's go ahead and pop over into Cricut Design Space, and I'll show you these designs. Okay, so here we are in Cricut Design Space, and we're going to do a couple of things. First of all, we're going to bring in our design. Second, we're going to set up a template. And then third, I'm going to show you how to offset that design so that you can peel it off or weed it out all as one piece. So all these darling little stars, you're not having to do those individually. And then we are going to send this to cut. And I'm going to show you all those little details as well as how to get the best quality color out of your printer. So now that we have our design and you have uploaded it, if you don't know how to upload a new design like that, I'll put a little video up above teaching how to do it. Super simple. Now that we have that, we want to make a template. I like to always have a template to kind of give myself an idea of what my design is going to look like on my substrate, so on my mug. And so I just go over into shapes. For this, for a mug, I grab this rounded rectangle and I pull that in, and then I just resize it to the size of my mug. It's 4 1/4 tall, and if I wrap a fabric tape measure around it, it's about 9 1/2 to 10. Actually it's 10, but I took off the handle because I don't want the design, to go under the handle. So 9 1/2. And then I went back in and got a little oval and used that as my handle. So I like to have this over here just to remind me that that's what's going to be facing me when I'm holding my mug. And then this is the design that's going to be seen by everyone else, when I'm holding my mug. So I am going to do 2 mugs today. So I'm going to use the Hocus Pocus facing me, and then my initial facing me. So these are actually some letters that I used in my last video, and I just fell in love with them. And so I will link those up down below. It's the entire alphabet. These aren't the only patterns. There are tons of different patterns and different ways. So I will link all of those up so you guys can check those out. But they are just adorable for fall and for Halloween. Okay, so now that we have that, you want to make sure that your design, that you're leaving a little bit of area top and bottom, or at least I do. That's just for me. And then when you have little areas like this, so the cute little stars around that, I want to put an offset on that because I want it to be simple or easy to move the DTV to my mug. So let's start by, for this, you could also do an offset, but maybe like a thinner offset. because you're not going to have to, you know, work around those stars. So we can start with the B. So let's just go into offset. And so I am not going to do one that big. I think I might take that down to, yeah, I think 0.10 works fine for me. Now the thing is that you can make the offset any color you want. Now I personally, for this, I'm just going to do white because my mug is white and I kind of want it to blend in. Now for the Hocus Pocus, I'm going to go up and do the same thing, but I'm actually going to use a bigger. So you can see here at 0.10, it still, you know, has the stars individual, and I don't want that. I'm going to go 0.2. And so let's see. Okay, that's perfect. So everything is together. So I'm going to hit apply and see how cute. I mean, that's darling, even when it turns black, right? Okay, so now once you've done that, there's one more step. You need to click on that, go over into your layers here, and you can see that you have your offset. It's showing up as a separate piece. So like if you sent these to cut right now, they would cut separately, and you don't want that. That defeats the whole purpose. So you're going to grab both of those either with your shift key or just highlighting them both, and then you want to flatten those. So once you've flattened it, if you look here, now you can see that the offset is now part of Hocus Pocus. So it's literally one cut. And we can do the same with our B, and then there's our offset. We'll grab both of those and flatten them. Okay, so now we have cut and cut. And so once I'm happy with the size of these, you could still resize this now, but once I'm happy with the size of these two, oh, by the way, really quick trick. If you click on your template, this is the other reason I like a template, it's going to show you your center point. You see this here? So here's your crosshairs. There's your center point, and so you can say, oh, well, that's maybe just a little too big, or maybe it's, you know, just right. But if you click on just the template, it's going to show you that. Now, Hocus Pocus is going to be centered to my, you know, my view, but the stars are going to kind of wrap around the cup, and I'm good with that. But if you wanted it to be smaller, this would be the time, you know, to make that just a smidge smaller. Okay, so now the next thing that we want to do is we want to turn off everything that we're not going to work with today. So I'm going to turn off all my templates and my extra Hocus Pocus, and we're going to select Make It. Okay, and so now this is what it looks like on our sheet. And so if you wanted to, you could go back in and add additional things to it and try to maximize that sheet. I always hate wasting material. So what we're going to do is go ahead and hit continue. And by the way, you do not mirror on DTV. You don't mirror on this printable vinyl. And I go through all of those kinds of things in my last video, which is up above and down below. Okay, let's hit continue. Okay, and so now the next thing we want to do is we want to send this to our printer. And so we'll just click Send to Printer. And once you get to this stage, you want to make sure, I'm going to turn my bleed off because I added an offset to the whole thing. And then my system dialog box, I definitely want that. It's very important when you're using inkjet printers or your sublimation printer, any of them, that you use your system dialog box and that you go in and select the highest possible quality. And usually that is a photo quality, and some of them just have a slider bar for best. You want to make sure that you're getting the best quality print, because what happens with these little printers is that they are holding back some of the ink to sort of allow you to print more sheets throughout the lifetime of that cartridge. So if we hit print, there it is. So just make sure that you pop over and grab that. Now you can see that I have media quality. This particular printer does not have anything great here, so it doesn't let me do photo quality there, but it does have a slider bar. So I'm just going to move that over to best to make sure that I get all of the ink and just press print. Now that our sheet is printed, the next thing we want to do is we want to cut that out. So we hop into Cricut Design Space and choose the right material. I actually have already gone in and pulled in printable vinyl as a favorite, but if not, go into Browse All Materials and choose printable vinyl. Okay, so we chose, and so now it's just going to use a fine point blade, and we're going to place it on the mat, and we're ready to go. Okay, so hot off the presses. Isn't this beautiful? The color is absolutely gorgeous. So now what we want to do is we want to put this onto our Cricut mat and cut it out. Okay, so when putting anything on the mat, you always want to start in that upper corner, and depending on how sticky your mat is, it may not let you move it. And I like to use a brayer and I'll just go in one direction. This comes off of the printer dry. I've not had any problems whatsoever with, any smearing, so that's fantastic. Okay, and so once that is in place, we can go ahead and feed that into our machine. You probably noticed that I added a couple of extra letters. I just have a real problem with not using all of the material, and so I went ahead and added some letters for a mug for my mom. So hopefully this is going to be a great test, and we are going to be able to make multiple mugs out of these designs. Let's go. Okay, so everything's all cut. We'll unload the mat. Let's just move our Cricut out of the way. Okay, so when you're taking things off of the mat, you just want to make sure, especially if it's really tacky, that you're bending your mat and not your material. This one is not very tacky, and as a matter of fact, I was worried about it, so I put a couple little pieces of tape at the top corner just to make sure that nothing, shifted, and it did great. So now what we want to do is we want to move it onto our mug. Okay, so before we put anything on to the mug, I just want to take some alcohol and clean it. This is something that I started doing with sublimation, and even though this is DTV and not sublimation, I just like to get all of the lint and all of the things off of it so I don't, take the risk of messing up my design. So we're going to give that a second to dry, and then we'll go ahead and put our design onto our mug. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to remove my design from my sheet, and you could cut these all apart or you can just peel them off. Just be very careful at the corners. Every once in a while, it wants to pull a little bit. It's very fragile, but it's a really great product. There we go. Okay, so now that I have this, what I want to do is I want to place it on my mug. And I've used my fabric ruler, especially whenever I want to measure distance, around something like this. But I am really just going to use it for distance in the top and the bottom today. So that is a half. Now that I have my design where I want it to be, and this is not tacky, so it's not going to stick to it, I have one of two choices. I can use heat tape to hold it down, or I can use, these are the DTV transfer sheets. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the transfer sheet on one side, and I'll do the tape on the other side, and I may very well mess this up, but I would rather test this here and then give you the right way to do it if it works at all, and then that way you don't have to waste any of your materials, right? Okay, so let's give this a whirl. So I'm going to take some of this transfer sheet and I'm going to cut out enough. And I've not used this transfer sheet. If you watch the last video that I did on DTV, I actually didn't have to use this because I used the offset, and so I didn't have to use this at all to keep it in place. So we will see how this works. Okay. Slide. Okay, so now that we have the DTV transfer tape on one side and we have heat tape on the other, let's give this a test. The one thing I did forget to tell you guys is that we want to use parchment paper or some type of protectant paper to make sure that none of the ink gets into our machine. You don't ever want to risk your machine. So we are going to wrap our mug. Okay, and since this is a test, we're just gonna have to see how this goes. So I'm thinking go with the indicator light when it gets to like 3, which is about halfway through. So this is going to press, for sublimation or sublimation ink sheets. It's about 6 minutes. And so this is, I would say, let's go half. Let's go half and see how it does. Okay, so we've gotten to the 3rd indicator light, so I am thinking we take it out and give it a whirl. I'm gonna use one of my heat gloves to set it on. Okay, so we opened it up, and the mug press, the actual mug is not, or the handle's not hot, but the mug itself is, wow, super, super, super hot. So I'm just gonna move this over. And we're gonna give that a minute. Okay, so I laid it on its side and the paper popped up. So now I'm just too curious and I wanna go ahead and check it out. Okay, so this side is the heat tape. It looks like it adhered. It looks like, oh, but I'm not gonna touch that to take that tape off. It would just be, I don't wanna burn myself. We'll swap that over. And that also looks like it did really well. I'm excited, guys. Okay, let's give it a minute. And then we will take off those tapes and just make sure that it actually adhered and nothing is, you know, gonna pull away with the transfer sheet or pull away with the tape. So it's cooled some, but I'll be honest with you guys, I have absolutely no patience. Like, I want to see how this is going to do. Wow, the transfer sheet right away comes right off, perfectly fine. Wow. No, okay, so that works. I'm gonna say that is a win. I'm gonna say the transfer sheet with the DTV is a win. Okay. Oh, this one makes me nervous. I'm so afraid it's gonna pull away. And it is still kind of hot. Okay. I feel like it has, okay, you probably can't see this on camera, but I'm telling you, there's a little bit of an indentation of the tape. Like, I can actually slightly see the indentation of the tape, and it's probably, it may be tape residue. Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay, so it's a no-go on the tape, guys. No-go on the tape. And if you could see the tape, you can see a residue like it of the DTV. But the good news is, oh, that's such a bummer. I wanted it to, like, maybe I could take that off and then redo it with the actual transfer sheet. Maybe. I hate to waste an entire mug. Yeah, so see, it just came right off. Okay, well, hey, that's okay. You don't have to waste your mug. And I was able to actually take that totally off. I think if I clean that when it's totally cool with a little bit of alcohol, any residue that was there, and then I can redo it. But this one, I can tell you guys, oh, I don't want to get that on my mug. I'm gonna move that out of the way. Like, it's there. I know people have used iron-on mugs before with some success, and I think it's a lot like, you know, the normal vinyl. Like, you're going to have to probably hand wash these. You're not gonna be able to put them in the dishwasher, but seriously, that's all the patterns, all the cuteness, and you're able to put that onto a mug without having a sublimation printer or without using like sublimation sheets or pens. You're able to use DTV, direct to vinyl, on mugs with the mug press. With the transfer sheet. I call it a win. Okay, so conclusion to our little test. So you can use DTV on hard surfaces. So we used it in the mug press and it did work. If you use the transfer sheet, so as your protectant between that and your machine, and I would think that this would be great like for flat surfaces if you put it on like really, I have some really cute little signs that are ceramic that hang from like a metal rod, and you can change designs in and out on that. I think this would be perfect for that. The mug, it worked, it did great. However, I did wash it and it did not damage it at all. Now I hand washed it. I didn't put it through the dishwasher, but I hand washed it on warm water soap and it did just fine. However, I think that if you did that, like you've submerged it in your sink or anything like that for a long period of time, I think it would eventually, you know, seep into that DTV, because it does very much still feel like paper. It has a coating on it, but it feels like paper. So I would say if I were gonna use this to make mugs, I would do it as like a seasonal thing where I fully intended on the design not to last forever. So if you guys craft with me ever, you know that I have created vinyl mugs in the past and usually for holidays, and it's things that I take off after that holiday because I don't want like a million mugs, right? So I will use that design and use it for that holiday, and then I remove it and then I put something else on it. I do that a lot. So I would just say that if I were you and I were using it on a mug, it would be like a temporary thing. But it does work and you can do it and it's super cute, and I hope you enjoyed today, and I hope this helped you to make a decision on to whether or not you would try one of these in the mug press. All right guys, see you next time.